This is the Solid Signal Podcast for the week of December 3rd, 2018, and the subject this week is a secret. I can't tell you anything about it. If I did, well, you know what they say. I'm joking with you a little bit, of course. That would make for a very short podcast if I couldn't tell you anything about what I was talking about. But what I do want to talk about is the nature of private beta testing. I will tell you without going into a lot of detail that I have been a member of a number of private beta tests over the years for a number of different products. And most of the time when you sign these non-disclosure agreements on these tests, there's a pretty big penalty if you manage to talk about it before they legally give you the right to talk about it. In fact, there are a couple of tests that I've never officially been released from, so I can't even talk about them at all. It might be breaking a non-disclosure agreement just to say that I even signed a non-disclosure agreement. I'm not 100% sure on that. But anyway, I bring this up because footage surfaced about a week ago of what claims to be the user interface of DirecTV's upcoming internet delivery box. I don't know too much about this box except that there have been some public filings about it, and you can read all about it on the internet. I can't really add a whole lot to that, but this latest video claims to show something looking a lot like DirecTV Now running on that box, and I don't know. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's not true. What I do know is the person who published that stuff is definitely out of that beta test. Why? Because, you have to have some degree of confidentiality when you're testing these things. You're talking about a device, whether it's, an AT&T box or the latest Apple TV or Roku or whatever, or even something that has nothing to do with streaming. And it's going to be used by millions and millions and millions of people. And that means it really should be pretty good, the day that it's released. We've gone through a number of different phases in the history of consumer electronics when it comes to that stuff. And while it is easier now to fix problems in software after the device has already been released, that's kind of a PR nightmare. You don't want to be releasing the, iPhone 25 and find out that after you've delivered 150, 200,000 of them on the first day, that, there's a major problem and you can't use them to make phone calls, or it only works in one time zone or something like that. Wide testing is extremely important in this process because it identifies those kinds of things that can be fixed in software, and occasionally identifies something that needs to be fixed in hardware so that the device needs to be changed before it goes out to people. This is just a critical part of the testing process, and in order to do that, you have to feel like you can have a large test pool who are not going to leak every aspect of what you're doing, because no matter what it is that you're putting out, whether it's a microwave oven or a toothbrush, there is a user group out there somewhere that's just desperate to hear more and more about it. This is certainly true with any upcoming AT&T device. AT&T's got about 25 million television subscribers, and more than that if you consider the number of people who actually watch videos on their phones. That's probably 100 million or whatever. I don't know. But they've got this huge installed user base, and they want to move forward. I think that everybody has known from the beginning that AT&T was not going to sit still when it came to television delivery. Just because they bought a satellite TV company doesn't mean that they were only going to stay with satellite television. Of course they were going to move into streaming. This was always part of the plan. That's super obvious. Satellite television just provides a strong backbone for the next 7 to 10 years while you're talking about how you're going to do that. It was a decision that's going to pay dividends for years and years and years to come, but it doesn't mean that satellite TV is going to be the dominant way that television is delivered 25 years from now. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be. I don't know. There are a lot of people who have been, on the other hand, arguing that satellite TV is already dead, and that for sure is not true. Anytime you sound the death knell for the satellite TV industry, you have to remember the roughly 25 million people who are currently using it, and all the businesses that could not possibly go over to streaming at this point, all of the apartment complexes that could not handle the streaming onslaught if satellite TV were to just go away. That's just, satellite TV is here now. It's here to stay. Maybe it won't be here in 25 years, which is why AT&T is looking to aggressively expand into streaming. Not a bad thing, folks. Not a bad thing at all. But any move like this, any time that hardware or software is involved, you need to have some sort of test. As a matter of fact, I go back to thinking way back in 2007, I think it was, when Hulu was first announced. They were giving away free beta test accounts where you could just stream everything that they had for free on flash drives, because, that's how we did things back then, to anybody who would walk up and give them their email address at the Hulu booth at the Consumer Electronics Show. They had to test it because it was going to go wide. They knew it. It took a couple of years for Hulu to take off, and I myself famously said that I would never pay for Hulu, and I had to eat those words, of course. But more importantly, they built on a strong foundation of testing, which is all that AT&T and any consumer electronics company is trying to do. So, of course, we're all looking for, what we used to call spy shots. Back 25, 30 years ago, you'd read a magazine and you'd see spy shots of a heavily camouflaged device or even a car. I even remember this was back in sometime around 1994 or so, I think it was. I was out in the California desert and I saw what looked to be a heavily disguised version of the next generation Ford Taurus in person. How cool, I thought. And back then you couldn't really publish stuff over the internet. Today, it's all more public. And while that's good, sometimes you do have to have closed testing. So if you are one of those people out there and listening to this podcast who is participating in closed testing, let's, do the entire process a favor. Don't go posting YouTube videos just because you want to be first, just because you want to be famous for about 5.5 seconds. It's not worth it. Not only are you going to get kicked out of the beta test, I can pretty much guarantee it, but also it's just not helping. To the individual who posted that YouTube video, as I said, whether or not it's accurate now, enjoy being out of the beta test, I'm sure. That's far from my decision, but I know how those things go. And more importantly, to those who are watching that particular video, how do you know that this is even the way things are going to look? All it's doing is telling you how things are at this point in the process, and everybody's pretty much agreed that the whole service is not going to launch for another 6 months at least. So, congratulations on knowing something that may or may not be useful. Anyway, that's my rant for the week. I hope that you have a great one, and keep listening to the Solid Signal podcast, keep reading the Solid Signal blog, and a quick pitch. If you haven't signed up for the Solid Signal Facebook group yet, go to Facebook's Solid Signal page, facebook.com/solidsignalcom. Look for the tab that says groups, and you can sign up for the Solid Signal Facebook group and be the first one to be notified when we have specials and all sorts of things over Facebook. All right, that's about it for me this week. I'll talk to you again next week.